Hi everybody, I'm Stefan for cgtestpost.com, and in today's tutorial we are going to create a cool animation for the Valentine's Day. So let's get started. I've already imported my 3D heart, and we are going to focus on creating the animation and not the 3D model, which is pretty easy to create, and you can find one probably free online. So let's hide this for now, and let's go to MoGraph and create a new text layer, and let's set the align to middle, and let's type our text. Just like so, and let's see, we need to reduce the size maybe, but first of all let's change our font to something more interesting. So I think that the font I used was this one, so Vivaldi, that's the font, and let's add some subdivisions to the text like so, and add fillet caps as well, and we need to reduce the radius to 0.5 just to have some nice smooth bevels here, and we need to add more steps. Probably 3 steps is going to work fine for the text. So that's our text. Let's create a new camera. Let's turn it on and go to the coordinates of the camera, and let's center it just like so, and probably move it up like 50 pixels or centimeters. And now we need to make the text a rigid body, so we need to apply a, let's see, rigid body tag to the text, and if we play you can see that it just falls down, and this isn't what we want. So we want to set the fall position and the fall rotation to 6, and if we play you can see that the text stays in place, which is exactly what we want. And another thing that we need to do is to go to the collision tab for the dynamics, and go to individual elements and set it to O, and now each letter will be considered as an individual element by the MoGraph dynamics. So now we need to make the animation of the text, and by accident I changed the angle of my camera. So let's set the camera like so, and I'm going to apply a protection tag to the camera. And now we need to go to the MoGraph and apply a plane effector, and go to the letters tab and put the plane effector here, and let's change the other, because we don't want any effectors to affect anything else but the letters. So go to the plane effector, go to the fall off tab, and let's change this to box, and we need to increase the size of the box like something like so, and we need to increase it like maybe 500 and 400, and probably set this like that. And by default you can see that nothing happens, and we need to animate our effector to push the letters. So let's take the plane effector, and we want to animate it on the z-axis, and we're going to do that. So as you can see, nothing happens, and that's because of the dynamic tag. We need to just disable it for now, and if we hit play, you can see that we see our animation. So we need to set this to something like so. We want the letters to come behind of the camera, and we are going to select the effector, go to the coordinates tab, go to the first frame, select keyframe for it, and move 90 frames forward, and just move it over like so. And we need to make our timeline 140 in 50 frames. And now if we enable the dynamics tab and turn on our camera, you can see how the animation looks like. And we want to add some random movement to the text, so we are going to select our text, or better, deselect the text, go to the MoGraph, go to the effector tab and apply a random effector, and we are going to drop it into the letters tab after the plane effector, and go to the random effector and change the position to 15, and probably we can add some rotation, and change the random mode to noise. And if we play the animation, you can see how the letters behave, and if we turn off the effector, you can see that they are still. So let's change the animation speed to 50% because we want just a slow movement, maybe 25%. Just we want to the letters to float around a bit, and that's okay. Now we need to create our particle simulation here. So let's go to the simulate and go to particles, and let's create a new emitter. And by default our emitter is right here in the center of our scene, and if we play, we can see that it emits particles, but it emits it in the wrong direction, and the size is too small for our needs. So first of all, we need to take this emitter and put it way back like so, and after that we need to rotate it like that, so it emits particles towards the camera. And after that we need to go to the particle and set the birthrate editor to 175, and this increases the number of particles in the editor, and also the birthrate renderer, we need to set it to the same number as well, because we want in the final render to have that amount of particles. The visibility is going to be 100%. The next options here are start emission and stop emission. The start emission defines the frame when the emitter is going to start emitting the particles. We want this to happen at frame 40, and the stop emission is pretty straightforward. It stops emitting the particles at frame 250. The lifetime is the number of frames that the particles are going to live in our scene. The speed is okay by default. The rotation, we want to set this to 360, excuse me, just to give the particles some random rotation. The end scale is okay, we want them to stay at the same size, and we want a variation in the rotation 100% and in the speed as well. And for the lifetime it doesn't matter, and we want to show objects. This is pretty important. And now let's turn on our heart here, and let's drop it here inside the emitter, and if you play it back, you can see that we see just the lines, and if we click show objects, you can see how it looks like. and we need to resize the heart to a pretty small size. And if we go to the particle tab, we can click render instances to speed up the viewport, and after that we need to go to the heart model, and as you can see they move through each other, which is something that we don't want. We want the hearts to respect each other like rigid bodies, so we need to go to the MoGraph simulation tags and apply rigid body, and we want let's play the animation to see if it works. As you can see, the hearts are falling down, which is something that we don't want, so we need to go to the force and set the fall and position and rotation to 6, and as you can see, if we play it back, they are moving forward. And now let's go to the emitter and go to the emitter tab, and we want this size to be 4000 by 2500, which is a pretty big size, as you can see. And now if we play the animation, you can see the amount of particles, and this one by default looks too flat. The particles move too slow and they are just not interesting to watch. So another thing that we are going to do is to go to simulate particles, and we are going to apply a turbulence, and this is a force that affects the particles, and we are going to set the strength to 50, and basically that's it. And it is going to add a bit of turbulence to the hearts, as you can see, and 50, not 5000, and that's how it looks so far. But again, it's not like in our animation. So let's go to simulate particles, and we are going to apply a rotation. And now for the turbulence, you can see that the force is right here in the center of our scene, and we need to change the position of the turbulence. So let's set it to 2000 and just change the rotation. And for the rotation here, we need to set this to 2000 as well and change the rotation. And now we are going to go to the fall off first and set, because let me show you, if we play the animation, you can see how the particles move in a circle, and we want to increase the strength. So let's set this to 100, and if we play the animation now, you can see how this affects our letters, and we don't want this to happen. We want only the particles to be affected. So the way that we are going to solve this problem is go to the rotation, go to the fall off and set it to cylinder, and we need to change the orientation to plus Z on the z-axis, and we want to increase the size like so, so it affects all the particles inside. Probably reduce the fall off. These red lines show the fall off, and inside then everything is 100% affected, and uh, right here between the these lines here and these lines here, this is our fall off, and we want to set this to something like that does not affect our letters. So if we play back the animation, you can see that this still affects the particles, but it doesn't affect our text anymore, which is exactly what we want. The next thing that we are going to do is to add another force. Go to simulate particles and let's apply wind. And wind is pretty straightforward. It's just going to increase the speed of the particles. So let's go to the coordinates for the wind first, and let's change its position right here where is our emitter is, and as you can see, that's how the wind looks like. And we need to rotate it again. Now go to the object for the wind, and let's set the wind speed to 50. Let's set the turbulence to 25, and let's set the turbulence frequency to 1. The rest is okay. So let's play the animation and see how it looks like so far. And as you can see, the size of our hearts is pretty small, so let's try to increase it. Probably 0.5 will be okay. And let's see, that's the effect we want. And the cool thing is that the text in the middle is in the middle of the screen, and it prevents the hearts to move through the camera, so that's a good thing. And now you can see that the letters go into their final position, but we have some problems here. So let's stop the animation, go to the rigid body tag for the text, and we have linear damping and angular damping. And what this does is forces the rigid bodies to go into their initial position, and basically to slow down their movement. So let's play it back. It's pretty slow. Well, we are not going to watch this, and a cool tip that might be helpful for you is let's hit Ctrl B, and as you can see, we can't watch this in real time in the viewport right now. But if we go to the render settings and go to hardware render, you can select the output for it, and let's click on hardware, and we have a bunch of options here which are not important for this tutorial. I'm not going to explain it, but basically what the hardware render does, it renders exactly what you see in the viewport, and it renders super fast. For example, 450 frames, it's going to be rendered for 2 minutes maybe, and you can see in real time your animation. So that's helpful to know. And now let's texture our scene. So let's create a, let's delete this, create a new material, and let's call this one text, and let's make the shader for the text. We want a reflection. It's pretty easy shader, and let's just copy it and rename it, and just change the color, and let's apply this like so. If we do a render, you can see how our scene looks like. It's pretty flat right now, and we don't have anything to reflect. So let's go to the content browser, to the presets, and I'm going to use the HDRI Studio Pack from Grayscale Gorilla, just for the sake of this tutorial. And I'm going to apply a probably this studio, and if we render it, you can see we have some pretty cool reflections. We need to increase the anti-aliasing right now, but again it looks too flat, and that's because we don't have any shadows between the hearts. So let's go to the render settings, hit Ctrl B to open them. First of all, go to the anti-aliasing and set it to 1 by 1 by 2 by 2, because we don't have any strong too complex reflections and stuff like that, and that's going to work fine. And go to the effect and apply ambient occlusion, and if we render this, you can see it takes more time to render, but it still looks flat. And let's stop this. We want to set the minimum ray length to 200 and the maximum to 800, and probably set the contrast to 15. And if we do a render now in the picture viewer, and I'm going to pause the video so it you can see the final render. Here is the finished render, and I did second render so we can compare it. That is without any ambient occlusion, and this is with the ambient occlusion, and I just tweaked the settings a bit. I just increased the contrast to 25%, and as you can see, this looks much better now. And what we need to do at the end here, let's play it back once again. So it's okay. Sometimes the dynamics have something like bugs or something. If we move the timeline indicator, it needs to simulate frame by frame, so we have to play it or render it using the hardware render to see the final render, but it's okay. And I think that we need a 30 frames to zoom our camera at the end. So let's move one frame forward and go to the coordinates for the camera, set a keyframe for the Z position, and we need to remove the protection tag and also set a keyframe here and move forward, and we need to move it just like so. Let's set this to 80 and this to 25 and set a keyframe, and if we play it back, you can see how it looks like. So this is our project. We need to render it out now. Hit Ctrl B for the render settings. Let's double check them again. We are going to export this as a PNG sequence with a straight alpha channel, and we don't want any sound, and that's okay. We need to choose our output directory and to render it out. And since I did it already, I'm going to save the project and jump into After Effects so we can finish this piece by adding some nice particles, flares, and a bit of color grading. So let's jump into After Effects. Here we are in After Effects, and this is our animation, as you can see. So we need to add a background first. So let's create a new solid. Hit Ctrl Y to create a new solid. Let's call it BG for background, and let's apply a generate ramp effect. We want just a simple gradient, and let's set the middle core to something like that, and the rest is okay, like so. Let's set this to 750 maybe. Increase the RAM scatter to avoid bending, and now let's make a few duplicates. Select the first one, go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, apply a fast blur, set this to 15, and let's set the blending mode to add, because we want some nice glow around our letters. Select the bottom one, go to Effect, Trap Code, Shine, and let's apply a Trap Code Shine. Set the boost white to 2, and let's change the colorize preset to something more appropriate for the tutorial, and let's set this to add as well, and let's set the blending mode of the layer to add as well, and probably we can increase this to 8 and this to 6, and set the opacity to 50% maybe, and that's one thing. For the particles we need to apply a bit of color correction, maybe a bit of contrast, and let's apply curves and go to the boot channel, and let's add a bit of blue into the shadows, and go to the red channel, just play with it a bit, like so. Now we need to create a vignette, so let's create a black solid, let's call it vignette, and just subtract it, hit F for the feather, set it to 300, and let's set the blending mode to classic color burn, and let's reduce the opacity like 15%, and we want this to be here to affect only the background, and maybe increase the opacity a bit more, like so. And now let's create a new layer and name it OF for optical flares. Go to Effect, Video Copilot, Optical Flares, and let's apply one of the presets here. Go to the Pro presets and let's apply this flare here. It has some nice colors, so let's set it right here. Set the blending mode to, let's see, add is okay, and go to the flicker and set the speed to 10 and the amount to 25, so we have some flickering. And let's duplicate the flare, set this to 75, change the position of the flare, go to options, and let's go to the let's see, this flare here, we want it right here. Probably increase the scale a bit and move it like so, and or maybe change it with some of the new presets, maybe this one, and let's change the color just a bit. That's it. Now let's create a new adjustment layer, and let's rename this to MB for motion blur, and let's apply Real Smart Motion Blur, and you can see how it looks by default. We need to set the motion sensitivity to 50% and this to 0.3 because we don't want such a strong motion blur. And we need to add some particles to make it even cooler. So let's create a new solid and let's call it particles, and go to effect, trap code, and apply particular, and let's saw the layer. Let's open the emitter, let's make some room here, and first of all change the emitter time from point, which is generate the particles from a single point, to a box, and set the size of the box to pretty high size, and set the number of particles to 500. Go to the emission extras, and as you can see on the first frame we don't have any particles. If we set the pre-run to 100%, we already have some particles emitted in our scene. The next thing that we are going to do is go to the particle settings, probably increase the life of the particles to 6 seconds, and let's set this to sphere glow. Let's set this to a random from gradient, and let's choose this preset here, and let's go to size over wife and use this preset, and go to the opacity over wife and choose the same one, and go to wife random, set this to 50, and go to the size random and set it to 100. Set the size to 3, unsolve the layer, and let's change the blending mode to add. So that are the particles that are going to be behind this. Let's duplicate the layer, change the random seed for the particles, and decrease the size to 1, and because we want some pretty small particles, and probably increase the number to 1000, and you can see that this adds a bit of detail. Let's duplicate the layer and put it in front of our render, and let's set the number of particles to 200, and let's set the size to 10, and let's see, probably reduce it a bit to 8, and maybe let's apply bore and sharpen. Let's see, box bore. Let's add just a bit of box bore, and you can change the color for the particles here to, let's set at birth, and make them pink if you want, something like that. Looks okay. And now we need to take this and let's drop it into another composition, and let's name this final render. And what we can do here is we are going to apply a new adjustment layer, go to bore and sharpen, and apply sharpen, and just sharpen the image a bit. Go to effect, noise and grain, and let's apply a noise, and we want not a color noise but a black and white monochrome noise. So we need to set this to 4 just to add a bit of detail. You can set it to 6 if you like. And another thing that we can do is to, in the original example, what I did was to create a new composition, and let's call this depth, and let's create a white solid and a black solid, and apply a vignette on the black solid, and let's see if we set this to 300 or 200, maybe 350, and we need to play around with the mask a bit, like so, and go to the final render, drop inside here the depth, and go to effect, and you can use the camera lens blur for this. Go to the blur layer, select it, and we want to invert the map, and probably 5 is a good number, maybe set it to 3 and go to the depth, select the mask and just extend it horizontally because we want our text to be in focus, so we are going to be able to read it. And basically that's it for it. That's the main thing. You can add more flares, particles and stuff like that. And for the background I'd like to make it a bit darker and more vivid here. And basically that's it for the compositing part. You can use your imagination and do some crazy stuff. Maybe go into the text here and duplicate it and just increase this to 30 and maybe duplicate it once again and set this to 100 just to get a nice looking glow here. And that's it. Hope you like this tutorial and find it useful. Once again, I'm Stefan for cgtutsplus.com and we'll see you next time.